Welcome to Tuesday Tips. Today we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to be demonstrating how to control your water. This is a beginner's level. Controlling the water is an ongoing learning process. The temptation is to use way too much water. So this is the first step. At this point, you have lots of water on your brush. And if you have a bigger brush, you have even way more. And then you can just let it drip and that dries it a little bit, or you can do this and that dries it a little bit. This is a cellulite sponge. It's very helpful in controlling water. If you touch it to it like that, it'll take a little bit off. If you hold it down, it sucks quite a bit out of it. If you have paint on the tip, you don't want all the paint to go away, you can hold it on the edge and it sucks the water out without taking the paint out. And then you can really dry it. And if you need it to be extra dry, like when you're doing animal fur or something like that, then you might do it with a tissue and get that really dry look. So we're going to paint a little leaf here. And I'll start with, this is Sap Green by M. Graham. And this density is sort of like, maybe about like milk. If I make it way thicker, then it's getting, if I had a lot of that, it'd probably be more like pancake batter or somewhere in between. It's pretty thick. And I'm going to mix that with one of my favorite greens, Permanent Pale. So here we are at the milky stage, and that's probably all I'm going to do of that. So that's not super wet. And I'm gonna mix these a little bit, and I want a lighter color, so that's getting pretty watery over here, like more like skimmed milk. And this front of this leaf is very light. And you can see that I have quite a bit of water in my brush. In fact, there's so much that I'm gonna let some of it drain into my sponge and just go over that and lift some of that off. So that's another way to control the water. Dry, lift. And now we'll go on to some of the darker green. Now this is still just a hair wet, so we might have some running there, but it's okay. I'll do the outside part first. So this is behind in the curve of the leaf. Probably needs to be a little darker, so I'll go into my pancakey stuff. Okay, it's running a little bit. And I'll just fix that in a minute. Again, it got very wet. So I'm gonna lift some of it off, dry my brush, lift some of it off. So there you go to controlling water. Now what to do when it's running like that? That's water that's gone out of control. One of the things that I do is use a tissue to get that edge. Now normally I would have waited for that to dry so that you wouldn't have that, but this happens at times. Okay, now we want a shadow, a pretty big shadow. So I'm going to go straight into my paint, which has been spritzed, but this is still pretty thick paint. And put this shadow in. When you put thicker paint onto wet, damp paint, it doesn't run as much as if it's wetter than what's already there. It's still running just a teeny bit, but it'll be fine for this. And then a little slightly lighter color. So I just barely dipped it in the water. Don't want tons of water. For this shadow, that's getting a little darker than I want, so I dipped it, wiped off extra paint. All of that has to do with water control. And there we go. Now it looks like quite a stripe there, so I'm going to go back in and make this a little bit darker, because when I used that tissue, it lifted an awful lot up. I'll go into the stem. Now, if you want to have some leaves in the background here, when we put some detail on this at the end, it'll look more 3D than it does right now. One way to put leaves on the background and have them look like they're further away is to get your background wet and then get some of the pastier paint, which I dried that before I put it back in there, because if you put it in there dripping wet and you don't have pasty paint anymore, it gets very watered down. And we'll have a leaf just coming across here. And it'll run and look blurry, but in the background, that's how they do. They go out of focus. Now that one I'll have to do something to differentiate the stem there. And on this side I don't have it wet. And then what can happen is you can get this sharp line, and so you can soften it by getting your brush damp, drying it a little bit, and moving across, and then you get a softer edge. Same within here. So for the purposes of today's lesson, I'm going to stop there, but I will have the finished image at the front of this video. I hope this is helpful, and as with everything, practice really helps. If you liked this, please hit the like and join my channel by subscribing. Thank you. Bye.